Welcome, everybody, to our webinar today. Today is a special day. We have a great group here, and we have Barry Lebow, who is a 53-year veteran in the real estate industry. Let me tell you a little bit about Barry. And by the way, this is an open forum, so we have questions, and we look forward to having more questions. You can either ask your question if you unmute yourself, or you can type it, and we hope to have some good conversation. We're going to run from exactly 9:30 to 10:30 a.m. This morning. So first of all, Barry Lebow has worked as a realtor, mortgage broker, renovator, builder, appraiser, arbitrator, mediator, author, writer, lecturer, teacher, negotiator. Not a lot that he has not done.
Can't
Uh,
hold it. Can't hold the job.
Can't hold a job. Can't hold a job. Interesting career for sure. Currently working as a sales representative with Remax Ultimate Realty Inc. brokerage. Barry is focused mainly on the 55 plus and senior market. He also specializes in litigation matters, stigma, contamination, real estate agency on a select basis. He serves as an expert witness and as a commercial arbitrator. Barry, you've worked many different jobs in the industry. My first question for you is, what was your favorite, and would you do anything differently if you did it a second time?
David, there was only thing I ever wanted in real estate was to be a rich heir. And my parents screwed me on that one. But leaving that aside, my absolute favorite thing, we had a company called WFE Developments, which Terry knows about. In my career, I bought, renovated, and resold over 600 houses. And there was nothing to me like being on the job and working with my guys and renovating. I was a hands-on renovator. If my guys needed, sometimes I'd be up there. I did roofs. I'd go up on a roof. If we had to get a deadline to get that house finished, I would get a hammer and go in there and start working. We were buying 13, 14 houses a month in our peak. And at one time, at one out of every three houses in Riverdale was mine that was under renovation. So I loved it. I just loved it. I miss it. Can't duplicate what we had. It's impossible to do what I was doing, and I make a machine, have the machine, and doing it like we did. But it was probably the most enjoyable part of my life. What I hated was the years I was an appraiser. It was a horrendous part of the business because not that I wasn't that good at it. I had to work. I was good at it in my production because I wasn't good at it. I knew that my math wasn't the best. So I had to double and triple check. I put in so much time and work. So I was smart enough to hire people better than me. But it wasn't what I enjoyed. I was all over North America. I was traveling. I spent a year once a week, almost for a year. I was in Texas for a client for a huge litigation matter, and I've been all over Canada, the United States, and I was in airports and traveling, and I was doing 40,000 a year in my car in Ontario. It wasn't a high paying. I was probably one of the highest paid appraisers in the country until I sold it 12 years ago. And guess what? I made more money in 9 months going back to real estate full time than I made in my best year being an appraiser.
Okay, Barry, you mentioned that you bought, renovated, and resold more than 600 houses in
Yeah,
Toronto.
yeah.
We see some people today, they're on a tear, I mean, just buying up whatever they can. And with the way the market has been going, these people, even if they're not good at, doing renos and whatever, I mean, you can't lose when the market has been going up the way it has been. My question is, what did you learn from that experience? Because I think that some people either have short memories, or maybe they're young, and they didn't. Do you think that what happened, like, if I'm not mistaken, the market didn't go anywhere from 1990 to around 2002, if I'm not mistaken.
It took 10 years for it to come back.
So 10
10
years for it.
years.
So,
But what
yeah.
did I learn the most was in April of the 9th of 1974, the conservative government in Ontario under Bill Davis, the same government that gave us rent control, by the way, a conservative government gave us a socialist rent control. The government of Ontario brought in the land speculation tax. And it was like I had 35, I think it was 36 and 35 houses ready to come to market. And I was going to retire at 27 years of age because I was going to semi retire. I woke up the next morning, I was $1 million in debt. And you have to understand something. That's in those dollars, 1974 dollars. That's millions of dollars of debt today. So I came up with a slogan for every successful business venture in the province of Ontario is a piece of government legislation waiting to wipe it out. I am totally afraid of government intervention at all times in the real estate market. And that includes right now, today.
Well, I mean, do you see any specific intervention that you think could have a real damning effect on the market at this time?
Well, your business. All they have to do is raise interest rates and they control the markets. We've got we've got a land. Look what they've done. They brought in They brought in double land transfer tax in Toronto. Like, that's obscene. It's obscene. And yet this is what they've done. And they've done all kinds of stuff. They brought in a foreign investment tax. They keep bringing in. You don't think about this stuff having an impact. Really, the foreign investment tax, when it came in 2017, it pretty well stagnated the whole Richmond Hill and Markham and other markets. Those markets just went boom for about 6 months to a year because they brought in that type of tax. Now, I'm not against that type of tax, don't get me wrong, because I think we had too much of a foreign investment. But on the other hand, the government does intervene. You think they're not sitting there at all times looking at the real estate market and thinking, what can they do to help the real estate market so they can go out to the public? But you see, if they intervene now, they would cause a huge crash, damage of people, and they're in election mode. They're in election mode.
Terry has unmuted himself. Terry, do you want to comment or ask a question?
I'm right there with Barry on all of this. I'll add supply. What we don't think about is how our municipal and provincial, but municipal, stops the actual progress of supply to make it calm market. Supply. I mean, they can bring in all kinds of legislation. They can increase your qualifying rate. What's the B20 rule right now? It's prime plus 1 or 2 or whatever it is.
Well, yeah, they increased the qualifying rate to 5.25.
Yeah,
5.25, all government intervention, and they forget about supply. So they're just completely screwing what it would be a normal market force by restricting supply. Saying to a builder, you want to build? By the way, it's $100,000 fee. Thank you very much. You want to buy a property, like Barry said, in the city of Toronto, you buy a $2 million house, and you're paying $30,000 in land transfer tax just for the pleasure of having a government official stamp saying, okay, you got a number. It's insane.
Every piece of material that goes into a house has HST on it. And if you buy a new house, then you got to pay HST on top of it. On top of that, you're paying HST on top of HST. But let's throw this at you. I live not far from Yonge and Eglinton. I can walk to Yonge and Eglinton from my house in about 15 minutes. Okay. Mm-hmm. It's one of the highest density areas in Toronto. We're getting 1 million plus immigrants coming in the next year or two, as soon as this wave of COVID decreases. And where are we going to go? We're going to go up. And every time they try to go up, the local councillors, these left-wing councillors, get involved and not in my backyard, and the ratepayers, everything always gets approved, but they delay it for 2 and 3 years, and somebody has to carry that. So who benefits in the long run? No one, except the city, maybe. The public gets screwed because prices have gone up. It's a cost. The developer has to raise the prices to carry it all. And everybody fights. Every development, I don't think there's a development I've seen in years that's not been fought over. This is, oh, you're going to put a shadow in my backyard. Or, hey, folks, you live in the city. Guess what? You're going to have to live with high density. And that's the way it is. And it's getting to the point where we have a left-wing council. We've had a left-wing council in the city of Toronto for a long time. And they oppose everything. And that causes problems and raises prices. But you can't solve the real estate problems. It's past this. We're dealing with madness. We're dealing with a currency that's called fiat currency. There's no backing to it. $1 million means nothing anymore. If everybody cashed out of their houses now in Toronto, you would have money would have no value because everybody's a millionaire. Every homeowner is a millionaire that has equity, that is, a lot of equity. What are you going to do with the money? Now, if this keeps going, by the way, I don't know about the rest of you. I've noticed, I went to fill my car up the other day. They haven't filled the car up that much in the last year or two. All of a sudden I go, what? That's the highest I've ever spent on this particular car to fill it up. Then I go to the grocery store and I don't look at prices. And I'm going, this is expensive. Went out for a couple of meals. It's expensive. Everything I'm buying is expensive. How long is it going to be before that young lady who's going through school and is working at the front of the office at night is going to get $35 or $40 an hour because it's the only way you can get help, because everything has to keep going up with this madness that we're prevailing in the real estate market. It sucks. It's like it sucks everything up as the prices keep going. Everything else has to go up with it. It's a vortex. It's not good.
Do you think that the prices keep going up and up, and I think that immigration is fueling that to some degree also. But I also think that there is a risk that if inflation gets to be so much that the government, although they would like to keep rates low, to keep people in a position where they can continue to pay their mortgage, the day could come where they have no choice but to increase rates to fight off inflation because the pressures could be so great.
Well, they
Um,
will by next year. I mean, next year there's going to have to be. The Fed's announced it. But David, talk about inflation. The inflation that the government states is not true inflation. It's greater than. They play with numbers. If you want the greatest Ponzi scheme ever in the history of mankind, is the current currency situation. They just keep printing money. You can't keep going like this without some kind of There's going to have to be a day of reckoning, David.
yeah, I agree with you, Barry. I agree.
The day
Um,
of reckoning, sorry, the day of reckoning. What about, we didn't talk about the retail store frontage up and down all of the streets in Toronto, in GTA, right across the province.
Yeah.
Barry, my
Well,
understanding is the pricing has already come off on those and they've gone down on those. What's your take?
I've been looking at that because I've been following rents. I've been studying the rents, and I've noticed landlords have not dropped the rent. There's something that's interesting what Terry brought up. In 1970s and 80s, so Tony owned a store. Remember, most stores are owned by small investors, individual investors. Tony owns a store, and that store is vacant during COVID. His tenant skipped, he's vacant, and he's lucky he's got an apartment upstairs. Okay, that's fine. In the meantime, Tony when he got the mortgage on the store, he went to his source, which was the bank. So he's got RBC on his house, RBC on the store. The store is a negative cash flow. He's in trouble on the store. Now they're saying to him, hey, we got to come after your house. Either you increase your mortgage to keep the payments on the store going, or we power of sale everything. And by the way, his credit cards are with the same bank. Everything's there. So we saw that phenomenon in the 70s and the 80s. What we haven't seen this time, which blows most of us away, the experienced agents and people around, I would have predicted that we would have seen a ton of power sales. It didn't happen. And why the power sales didn't happen is because prices kept going up to bail people out. but it shouldn't. It's just been this is the wildest phenomena what we've had in those last 12 months or 14 months or whatever it is of these bidding. Now we're seeing it's calming down. We're not getting 13 or 14 offers on a property, with a few select ones, yes. But in what happens is we're getting down now, stuff sitting on the market. I'm seeing price reductions more. I'm seeing changes in the market. The buyers a little more in, let's say, not as much desperation. But we also have to look at another fact about the buyers today too. Let's take, I don't know, somebody here could throw me a fact. If somebody wants to type it in, I didn't look at the stat. So let's see, when did the market start going crazy when we started to get all these crazy offers? Would it be September
It
or
was
whatever?
September. It was September.
September, it's about September. So if you look at a number of sales on Treb, just Treb, not all the boards, because there's people on here today that are from other places in Ontario. If you look at the stats and you see how many people bought, well, if there were only so many people in the pool that could buy, you've already eliminated all those people because they bought. A lot of the pool has bought. The pool is shallower now because there's less buyers. That's another aspect. And so and people are weary. I've got buyers walking away. I've had buyers just go, I'm not in this game. I'm out. I'm out. I'm out. I'm not going to bother. I'm staying where I am. Better Dwellings in their, which is a newsletter I get, they just said that something like 26% of people can't go up the ladder. So somebody, the old way, you bought a condo, a one bedroom, then maybe you bought a bigger condo, then you bought the townhouse, then you bought the semi, then you bought the detached. And it was the ladder. You kept going up. They did a study, and I can't remember if it was Bank of Montreal or who. People can't afford to sell now because they can't go to their next level. The gap has gotten too big. The gap between, let's say, a semi and a detached house has become so great, they can't move. They're frozen. Now, I'll speak for Magda, myself. Magda and I we are what we call master accredited senior agents. There's only 28 of us or something in all of Canada. And we focus on the seniors business. And a lot of our seniors wouldn't move during COVID. They just wouldn't move. And that's put a big dent on my business because I had people ready, willing, and able to sell. Seniors aren't moving. And when you look, the largest percentage of single family dwelling owners in Canada are over 60 years of age. And they're not moving. They're not moving. They don't want to, by the way. Stats are they'll move when they're forced to move. Very few voluntarily want to move.
That's probably a good segue into a question that Catherine Reed asked. She said, how do reverse mortgages work and are there alternatives?
Well, I put people into reverse mortgage. I've done some reverse mortgages. My
question is going to be, why would you want a reverse mortgage? Never mind how it works. Why would you want it?
Because there are circumstances. I'll give you a very simple one. Couple in their 80s. She is senile. He loves his wife. The house needs work. She cannot. If they move into a Amica or a Dell or one of those, he's looking at about $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 a month. He looks at everything and he says, my wife is not, she knows where everything is in the house. She's sent out. I am going to stay with another 5 years in this house so she can have the last years in peace. And I don't have any money. So he takes out a reverse mortgage for a short term. That's one scenario that I worked with. Scenario two, I had an elderly woman who was going through a divorce of a 50+ year marriage. She never worked in her life. She had no skills. She used the reverse mortgage to buy out her husband and stay in the house and raise her. You talked about dogs when we were starting this. She had 4 dogs. That's her whole life, was her dogs. Never had kids. She had dogs. And she used the reverse mortgage for that. And then I had another case where somebody got a reverse mortgage to help their kids buy their house, the piggy bank of mom and dad. So they use the reverse mortgage. Look, I'd use a reverse mortgage because what do I care? Why would I care if I can get a reverse mortgage and never make a payment and I'm older and my kids, my particular children, don't need my money? My kids are set. They're not set for life. They can't retire. My kids don't need my money. My kids have done well in life. And thank God. And why can't I be selfish and just enjoy my life and have a reverse mortgage? There's still going to be equity left over. It's not the old days, Terry, where in the old original reverse mortgages and the American reverse mortgage are not the same as Canadian reverse mortgages. There still will be equity left in the house. In the old day, at 7% mortgage, after 7 years, Magda, you remember when we used to look at these numbers in the early years? After 7 years, you ate up almost all your equity. Well, that's not the case anymore. They're not a bad instrument. What is an alternative? There isn't, because it's the only one that gives you where you don't have to make a payment. Every other alternative, you have to make a payment. You want to increase your line of credit? You want to do this? You got to make a payment. So would I use a reverse mortgage? I'm a big advocate for reverse mortgages.
I'd like to weigh in on this topic, seeing as I'm a mortgage broker, and coincidentally, Catherine Reed just she joined us while you were in the middle of answering the question, Barry. And what I will say that your last point I think is bang on. I mean, it's for somebody who doesn't have the cash flow, is not in a position to make payments. That's number one. They can do an equity takeout, as you said, to give a gift to an adult child, let's say, who wants to buy a property. They can buy an investment property if you want. You can actually have a reverse mortgage if as long as you're living in it, in up to a sixplex, which is interesting. So you can enjoy the income from a property if there's multiple units, as long as you're living in it. And yeah, I think there's a lot of people have certain fears. I'm actually speaking with a lady right now who I think the reverse mortgage would be a great solution for her, but just because some of the things she's heard, I'll tell you, we have rates even under 4% now. There's two companies that offer the reverse mortgage. One's a little bit more expensive than the other, but it depends how much money you need to get out of the property. If you can't get it from one, then you go to the other, you pay a little more. They also set it up so that they can give you some money now, and then you can have advances later on. It's usually, I wouldn't normally recommend it as a short term. Actually, one of them has now a short term an open product. So traditionally, it wasn't something that was great if it was if you were in it short term, because the penalties to get out in the first 3 years were more substantial. But that's changed. So for the right situation, I think it is a good solution.
It's a
And
tool. It's a tool.
yeah,
That's all it is. I mean,
yeah.
it's not for everybody. They've gone up. Look at reverse mortgage lending has gone up about 400% in the last years. It's growing. There's a guy called me up. They've got a new way. What they'll do is they'll do like a reverse mortgage deal, a better deal, but they want 10% of the equity of your property, of any future growth. Everybody's got a twist, you know.
Right.
Every time I turn around, somebody's coming up with a new game to play in real estate. And there's always a new game to play in real estate, and there's always something that you have to learn. I want to go back to something, if you don't mind, Dave.
Sure.
You know, joking around, I've worn a lot of hats in real estate, and I really haven't. What I've got is I have an extraordinarily curious mind. One of the problems I'm going to have is when I know that my time is over and I'm coming to the end of the game. The sand in my hourglass, there's more sand at the bottom than at the top, and it's going to bother me because I always want to know what's coming tomorrow. I'm totally fascinated by the next thing. I always want to know answers, and I find that most people in this business don't know this business. They don't study this business. There's so much out there to learn. I'm totally ignorant of landlord tenant, and the reason I'm ignorant of it, I don't want it. I don't want to get involved. I've been a property manager as a matter of fact, I was a property manager for Terry Wallman's dad. They took over a building on Vaughan Road and said, run it because they had it under power of sale. And it was so funny. I went to the super And I said to the super, "You look like a really nice guy." And he goes, "Hey man, what?" Yeah, and I said, "Here's what I got to tell you this. In 2 days, the government's coming through. They're going to do a raid here to see if
Oh, you
anybody
have to tell the
donates
beginning first, though. You have to tell what you did when you went up to the roof. What'd you find?
on the marijuana lab, the marijuana grow." But what was interesting, I told them, I said, "We're getting the government in here. They're coming in to raid the place to see who's illegal." Within like 2 days, we had like 20 empty apartments. It was great. I hated property man. I don't want anything to do with it. And as a landlord, as a former landlord, and I've had a few hundred tenants in my life, I don't want to ever go through that. It's one part of real estate I'm ignorant of because I prefer to be ignorant of. I give it to other people. Um, but David, there's so much to learn, and I'll tell you, I read the forums that we're on, and I look at real estate hacks, and I look at professionals, and I see the questions, and I'm going, how did these people get into this business? And who's in the public is doing business with these people? They don't know. Their ignorance is phenomenal. There's not a day that you can't learn in real estate. Not a
Yeah,
day.
that's a good segue into some of the courses that you offer, which you're going to be relaunching, I guess, in the fall. A
Yeah,
number
I
of
finished.
courses.
I finished my last one last week. There's a hiatus for the summer. The real estate boards don't do any courses. My new one, "How Not to Get Sued," has been very popular.
Tell us about that. I mean, what are some of the most common reasons real estate agents are getting sued?
Well, there's two things. I don't get into one aspect, and that is the sleazy real estate agent, the larcenous real estate agent, because that I can't stop. Those are people that are in the business because they're there for themselves to get. I more or less teach how an innocent agent can make a stupid mistake and what to avoid. One of the biggest problems we're seeing is people telling people, "Oh, you got to go in without any conditions because you're in a multiple offer, and you got no," and then they find out after they close the deal the house needs $200,000 of remediation because there's mold, asbestos, and I say 200,000. I've got three with over $200,000. And I tell the agents, all you have to do is use. I've always used a form. I used to get people to sign off. I've explained this to you. The Ontario Real Estate Association came up with a form called 127, which basically is, "David, I have cautioned you. Here's the pro and the con of lifting this condition. And you have agreed that I've explained this to you, and you acknowledge that." That's
Mhm.
all. That's all you got to do to stop from being sued. And I have like the Powell case. The Powell case where the Powells sat in a car. There were three offers. They were with their agent, the front seat. They were in the back seat. And Mrs. Powell and her daughter, um, in court, they testified. The agent said, "The only way we're going to get this is you have to take out the home inspection clause." And the agent goes into court and says, "No, no, they insisted we take out the clause." So you got he said, she said.
Mm.
All they needed was a simple piece of paper. And in that case, by the way, the agent did get nailed because you've got a credibility thing of who the judge believes the most. So I, my last deal with a home inspection was very simple. The offers were Thursday night, so I got my inspector in on Tuesday. It was that simple. And then we put a bully offer in and we got the deal. So, there's different ways of doing it. Somebody says, "What's the cost of a home inspection?" There's pre-inspection. They go between $400 and $500, depending on what.
Oh boy.
Yeah, well, I guess though it's not so much the cost itself, but as you know, Barry, with the market the way it has been, if you don't remove all conditions and go in with a bully offer or some ridiculous offer, you may not get the place. I wonder if there's an
Past tense,
equivalent.
David. Past tense. That is not happening as much now. Things are loosening up. They're
Mhm.
changing.
Yeah, well, it's for the best because I'm sure many buyers have been burned, as you say. So how will you be able to help some of those buyers? I know you mentioned there's going to be more lawsuits, and I know lawyers call upon you too because you've served in something like over 500 cases as an expert witness. So how will you be able to help in some of these cases?
Well, let's rest. I got a woman right now that bought a house again without a home inspection, and there was no question termites were evident. It was so bad. The termites are so bad that the city has said the house, you can't even put a refrigerator, the refrigerators and the stove are in threat of going through the floor, not even the walk on the place. I've come in there at $1 million loss on the property. $1 million. We're suing. We're suing. She's suing. I'm the expert. So they're suing the seller. They're suing the listing agent. They're suing the buyer's agent. So when I actually do a lawsuit, I'm suing myself because when I do a lawsuit, when I get involved as an expert against a real estate agent, it's the E&O insurance. That's my own E&O insurance. By the way, I once did a job for this is the funniest one. I did a job for the University of Toronto against the University of Toronto's insurance fund. The university was suing themselves. It was bizarre.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it was so bizarre. And it was $1 million case on a barn in the Scarborough campus.
Wow.
But I love that stuff. I mean, it's fun. It's fun. But a lot of the cases, agents lied, agents omitted, agents didn't tell people there was contamination. They didn't tell people about, and agents knew. One of the most common threads, this is phenomenal. I get for about 2 years, I was doing nothing but marijuana grow-ops. Agents didn't disclose there were marijuana grow-ops. And they knew. We know they knew because we under the Freedom of Information Act, you can get certain information. In one case, we got the police report for the raid where the agent swears he didn't know there was a marijuana grow-op. We found the police report. The agent's the one who called the police.
Oh, God.
He swears he didn't know. We got him on the police report.
Oh, my God.
Oh yeah. So what happens is we had marijuana. And then, one of the biggest common threads I get, flooding. Not just because there was a storm and there was once. We're talking about houses that have flooded 7, 8, 9 times.
Oh my God.
And one of the things I teach agents is that I have an insurance clause that I put in for all my buyers. I don't put an offer together. And it says in my offer that to the seller's knowledge that they've never had been denied insurance, had their insurance rated, and rated means higher premiums, or limited, which means you're not covered for some aspect like flooding. That's all. And if a seller, it's an innocent clause. If there's nothing, no problems, there's no problems. If a seller doesn't want to sign it, I go, whoa, what are you hiding? What are you hiding? So I use the insurance clause to cover my buyer's ass and my own. I don't want to get sued.
Nobody wants to get sued. Nobody. I hear you. It's all good. How you doing, Barry?
Hey, buddy.
That's Chris Stassoff. He helped us out here in up at Elm Developments where we bought in Wasaga Beach. So
yes.
I know Chris from he's my near neighbor. Lives close
one of my
by.
oldest. Years back, I had to appraise the old Dinosaur Valley up in Wasaga Beach. That was fun. Dinosaur Valley.
Dinosaur Valley, yeah. It doesn't exist now. I think
I
it's a grow-up.
It was
I think it's called the new Cannabis Cove.
By the way, Terry Wallman mentioned something about the retail. Terry, don't worry about retail. Every other store that's empty in Toronto now is a cannabis store.
That's right.
For now.
Starbucks up around, and what's it called? Which one is it? Not Starbucks. Second Cup. Aren't they in the cannabis business now? And they're converting some of it right up the street from me. I live in Forest Hill, one of the best addresses in the city. And I've got 3 cannabis stores up the street. 3.
I don't know if people can smoke that much cannabis.
It's not making money.
We have 4 in Wasaga Beach. We have 4 in Wasaga Beach. Just one opened up over at Stonebridge Plaza. It used to be the Source store.
It still is.
Yeah, it still is. It's the Source. It's a place to get your cannabis and edibles, I guess. The other place is just on Main Street. They're opening July 5th. There's Easy Speaking Cannabis, which is
You must have a share in that. You're
dropped
plugging.
off,
Wow.
off the main
Yeah.
drag. No, it's just all common knowledge. I've been selling it in Wasaga Beach now for 31 years, and we've sold a little over 4,000 new homes. So we're quite eager to get our next phase. We'll be launching in the early fall. So it'll be good. We have another 500 homes coming, and then after that, another 800. So where David lives now, it's a up and coming site in a golf course community, and I'm sure you know about that.
Come on
too,
up to Wasaga, with a house
Come to
across the
Wasaga
street
Beach.
is for sale.
We're
Um,
coming.
Barry,
Always
I want
traffic jam.
Barry, I would like to ask you. No, we're just far enough, just outside the traffic, and plus we got bikes, and I even got my wife a trike. Okay, so we're gonna
You
go,
heard about
go to
that.
the
You know, I
beach.
shouldn't say this on an open forum, but it's only us. You heard about the guy that bought his wife a bike and told her to pedal her ass around town. You know about that, Joe. Okay.
Okay, listen, I want to, Barry, I wanted to ask you about co-living. Is this a trend? Is this a way that people, because I know you specialize in the seniors market. Is this going to have legs? I mean, it seems to make sense. You know, people are lonely, they can get together, maybe afford to buy a house. Do you think that it could go anywhere? Does it make sense?
I was designing in Riverdale and Cabbagetown back in the day, tandem houses. Tandem houses. See, I buy a house with you, and one of us ends up with a bigger bedroom, and we have to share a bathroom. So what I would do is I would build on I got the second floor out and make the two bedrooms exactly the same size, two small bathrooms, and then put a skylight in and a light shaft down the middle with letting light into both bathrooms. I could not sell those fast enough because they were really a great way for people to share. Now we're looking at I'm going to say this to you. You know, when I was a kid and I was 17, I think it was 16 or 17, the first time I went to Miami, we went to visit a cousin of mine, my mother's cousin, who was probably 75, 80 in those days. And there was a guy living with her. And I said to my parents, "Is that her boyfriend?" They said, "No, that's social security cohabitation." What they were finding in the States is two seniors would get together, throw in their social security, and they could afford to live together. There was no relationship of any kind. They're just two people sharing on social security. So now with there's no reason people can't go in and buy. David, this is nothing new. This has been going on for 40, 50 years. People have been, that aren't related, have been buying houses together.
Mm-hmm.
It's very common.
Right. Okay, sounds good. So we have a couple of questions. Also, I'm going to mention we have Carrie Fox, who has joined us from Israel. We're going to talk to Carrie about some insurance issues shortly. But I wanted to mention there's a question that came in from Chuck. Wanted to see if you wanted to comment on this one, Barry. Says an 80-year-old low-income senior wants to increase his income, has a $1 million home with no mortgage, wants to buy outright a condo using a reverse mortgage to be given on presumably the rental property. What do you advise? Comments?
There's no reason why you can't borrow money at a cheap rate to lend it out at a better rate. The question becomes, a reverse mortgage is what, around 4%
Approximately.
The question is, what is the return going to be on that investment? And if the investment, now let's look at it from another point of view. If I borrow that money and I buy a secondary property, then that mortgage on my house becomes an investment, and therefore I can write that off against my income tax. I've got it's now a cost of borrowing for an investment, so therefore that interest is now tax. It comes in as tax. I can write off that tax on that income. So on the interest rate, I should say. The other, you can't on principal. You can't on principal, only on the interest. So the question is, are you going to get more than 4 or 5% on your return after tax? If it's not there, don't even waste your time. What are you going to get? Now, here's the thing. It's not about the rent. It's about capital appreciation. Is the condo going to go up? Because if you got a house, the house is going to go up. The condo is going to go up. Is it a smart move? I don't think it's a brilliant move. I really don't, because what's your rent going to yield you? What is your rent going to yield you? It's going to yield you 5%, 6%, 7%? Would I borrow at 4 to get?
What kind of service is your tenant going to give you? Also, you're 80 years old and you have a tenant that says, "I'm not paying you."
And what we're going to say, and what about management? And I mean, I'm handy. I don't want to go up a ladder anymore. I'm 74 years old. I don't want to go up a ladder anymore. I'm not doing it. I mean,
The other thing you can do is, if you do own a property and you have the equity, you can structure a reverse mortgage so that it actually pays you. It can pay you $1,000 a month. You don't have to, borrow $200,000 of cash. I mean, you could if you need it, but you don't have to. You could just have it pay you every month.
by the way, there's a company, I know someone in Toronto that owns about 4,000 homes across the United States right now. And they've been buying up houses all over the United States and renting them out. And the idea is that they're looking for capital gains over the years, because the properties keep going up in value, the rents, even if they cover. So now we've got, and I'm going to be corrected here, I know the name, it's Black Point, are starting to do the same thing in Canada. Blackstock, thank you. They're starting to do the same thing here. They're buying up houses in huge numbers.
There was an article on LinkedIn not too long ago. A lot of people that are billionaires are doing this, Barry, and that's exactly what they're doing. They're just,
and then you're going to be competing, and then there's less product out there, and you're going to be competing with these companies, and eventually the small guy's going to get screwed. That's all.
Correct. That's exactly what's happening.
Question from David Stool. Why does Toronto and the GTA have a prejudice against walk-up apartments? The single-family home is a big waste of space. Walk-up apartments can take their place. Any thoughts on that? Yeah.
Oh, I am such an advocate for the duplex. If you look on a street, okay, the Benvenuto in Toronto, the apartments in the Benvenuto, which those in Toronto know are very elegant, very expensive. There's a street that goes off Avenue Road called Edmund. Edmund Street has the largest plexes you've ever seen. I think those apartments are 2,000 to 2,500 square feet rentals. And the idea was, back in the 1920s, when you lived in the big Rosedale home, and when my dad was a kid in Toronto, the richest part of Toronto was Parkdale, not Rosedale, Parkdale, but that got ruined. When your legs went, when you were getting a little more feeble and you couldn't go up 2 or 3 flights of stairs in your mansion in Rosedale, it was considered poor. It was not nice to live in a high rise. It was for the real bourgeois. I mean, it wasn't what rich people did. So they built these plexes for wealthy people to downsize from their homes. And they did. And I am such an advocate for plexes, you have no idea. I think that I'm trying to look at, I'm actually coming up with an idea of how to put elevators in the plexes that were built, these 6 and 8 plexes back in the day, that have what they call the scissor stairs. You have to go up a flight of stairs to get in the property, because the basements are raised out of the ground.
Yes.
Today, seniors need an elevator. I have finally figured out a way to do it architecturally and to get this done. And we're looking at an idea of converting these 8 plexes, 6 plexes, 8 plexes into $1 million, $1.5 million suites for seniors, because seniors don't want to be in a high rise. They just don't. And yet they want a bungalow, and a plex is the best benefit to it. I think what a waste of space.
Terry says, yeah, go ahead.
Clark Avenue in Thornhill pisses me off. I drive down Clark, and what do you have? Fences all along Clark, the backyards of these houses.
Well, the properties there are deep, as you know, Barry.
Huh?
Those properties on Clark are very deep. The ones on the east side of Yonge are really deep.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is,
feet deep.
There's no reason for fences there. They could be plexes.
Yeah, they could. They could.
That bothers me every time I drive there.
We have, sorry, go ahead, Barry.
So I was going to say, I see you got Carrie coming in.
Yeah, we got Carrie. There's a question.
Sorry.
Yeah, well, there's a question from Carrie, and somebody else. So I figure we'll use that last question to segue over to Carrie. Um, so basically, Carrie's saying, have prices stabilized? When did it start? And then Tim says, have they stabilized because things have opened up and people's focus is on travel? And come September, do we think things will spike? And then Barry, after that, if you want to help me to introduce Carrie, that'd be awesome.
So right now, no, they haven't stabilized. We're still seeing price increases and everything else, but not to the great consideration. And we got and with as things open up, we're going to see probably another round of this. You understand, we can sit at a table right now. Those of us that have been around a long time, I could sit at the head of a table and argue with you why the real estate market is going to crash and be the worst crash in the history of real estate since the Great Depression.
But we're in a super cycle right
Hold
now.
on, let me finish.
Okay.
Let me finish.
Okay.
Then I can get up from the table and go sit at the other end of the table and argue with you why real estate's never going to crash and why it's going to keep going up. So nobody knows. All I know is at this moment, people are coming out of a shell. We have been in a lockdown for a long time. I'm going on holiday in a couple of weeks. Other people are traveling. And that's just the way it is. We're in a holiday mood. We want out of the lockdown. Real estate's not on our mind. Come September, you're going to see another real estate surge. That's all there is to it.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
Okay, so Barry, Barry has introduced me to Carrie Fox, and Carrie Fox is a guy who really knows his way around insurance. So he's going to give us some tips today. He's going to talk about water coverage. He's going to talk about working with an independent broker and mortgage life insurance. Carrie, welcome. You got to unmute.
You did good.
There, now we can hear you.
I thought you were in control.
I haven't seen you. I've been talking to you on the phone like we're best friends, but now I can see what you look like in person. You're very handsome.
Now you're going to hang up? Are you going to hang up now?
So talk to us.
Well, first of all, good morning, everyone. I hope you're doing well.
Thank you.
Yeah, I guess it's interesting what Barry said in the beginning about water damage. When it comes to insurance, that's the big issue these days. Houses aren't broken into and there are very few fires, slip and falls and things like that. It all comes down to water damage. There are claims going on every day, water. I tell my clients, before they buy their house, exactly the same as what Barry says, but what you can do is to save a lot of time is to ask for an experience letter from the current insurer. What that gives is a claims experience. Verbal is nothing. In writing, as Barry says, it solves the problem. So the first thing I would ask for is an experience letter. You also have to be very careful of which insurance company you deal with. There are insurance companies, without mentioning any, that are owned by banks. One in particular gives very limited water damage coverage, which means if you have a loss, whoa, are we still together? Okay, if you have a loss, the amount of loss may not be covered. For example, if you have a basement where there is $100,000 worth of damage, there's a lot of likelihood that you may not have enough insurance to cover it. One insurance company, again, the bank, will give you maximum of $50,000 water damage coverage. And most basements cost way more than $50,000 to renovate. So that's an important thing. So when you're looking to buy insurance, don't look at the price, look at the coverage. You know, that's the bottom line. And make sure you get full coverage for water damage. Now, not every company offers that. So that leads me to why you should work with an independent broker. As a broker, what I do is the first thing I look for is unlimited water damage. I don't even think about price, unlimited water damage. If I can get that for the client, then I've done my job. Also, if the client can provide me an experience letter, it brings down the premium. That's the experience letter has become the #1 issue these days. Again, going back to what Barry says. So as an agent, if it were me, I would be asking for an experience letter, and then I'd be flipping, or the lawyer. That should be the response, maybe the responsibility of the lawyer as well, to ask for that experience letter. Well, I guess, again, I've already dealt with working with an independent broker. Now, I also sell life insurance, which is mortgage insurance. So if you go through a bank, they're all trying to sell you as part of the mortgage life insurance or mortgage insurance. The problem with that is everyone gets it. There's no medicals. So let's say you bought a mortgage, you have a mortgage, say with XYZ Bank, you get the mortgage insurance, but what they're selling you is term they're selling you decreasing term insurance. So what does that mean? So for example, if you have a mortgage for $500,000, as the mortgage goes down, the amount of coverage goes down, but the amount you're paying remains the same. So in other words, if you bought a mortgage, have a mortgage for example, for 25 years, once you paid it off, you're still paying the same amount for the life insurance. So you're far better off to get term insurance for the time of the mortgage. For example, if you get a 25-year mortgage, get 25-year term. However, I strongly recommend a 20-year term because that's the most popular product on the market. That being said, if you get the most popular product, you're paying the least amount of money. So yes, buy insurance for your life, but don't buy it from a bank. Buy it from an independent broker. Otherwise, you could be wasting your time. And certain banks really pressure people when applying for a mortgage to buy the mortgage insurance. It's a very, very bad thing to do.
You're right on.
Gary, talk about the biggest problem that we have in the senior field, and that is, and most agents don't understand this too. After 30 days, a house has no insurance on it if it's vacant.
That's correct. People misunderstand the rules of insurance. Unfortunately, a lot of brokers fail to explain that to them. And if you're working through an insurance company or an independent or a deal direct insurance company, you're an agent, you're not a broker. Well, that vacancy clause is very important. Yes, if you've sold your house after 30 days, or pardon me, if your house is vacant for more than 30 days, your insurance becomes null and void.
Is that every company?
Pretty much, but there are certain ways around that. Okay, the first thing is you apply to the company you're dealing with and see if you can get an extension. Some companies, if you've been with them, there's still some loyalty out there, believe it or not, with some insurance companies, and that they may extend for another 30 or even 60 days longer. So your first choice to go to your broker and say, can I get it extended? Now, that being said, you should also have in your pocket and say, okay, I want the extension, but I have someone going in the house every day. Because the more you can offer the insurance company, the more flexible they will be to cover you for that vacant extension. So have that in the back of your mind. Have a family member, a neighbor, whatever, goes in and checks it. That also applies if you go on vacation, Barry. And again, going back to where we started, water damage. It's all about water damage. I could tell you claims. There was a claim in New York. One of my clients had a claim. And it was on the top floor of a very, very expensive apartment building. People were paying rent $10,000, $20,000 a month. Okay, so the guy on the top floor decided to rent it out as an Airbnb. The Airbnb person left the taps running. You can't imagine how much damage was done in 15 minutes. Well, about $1.5 million. Okay, so my client said to me, I couldn't believe it. I didn't insure it because I don't insure in New York. I said to him, what are you doing? Are you suing Airbnb? He says, I haven't got a hope in hell. I ate the loss. $1.5 million, he ate it. Because by the time he goes through lawyers and this and that, he just settled it quick. He wanted all his tenants to be happy. He didn't want to lose his tenant. He went to each tenant and said, let's settle. And it cost him over $1 million.
Carrie, Ida has sent me a note asking if you could explain again, please, what is an experience letter? You touched on it.
An experience letter is very simple. It shows the claims. It shows the type of claim and the date of claim. Some companies will go back even 15 years. Now, as Barry said, if the client if the seller will not supply you with an experience letter, run. Do not buy the house, because then you know the answer. There've been claims.
Okay, very good. Does anyone else have any questions for either Barry or Carrie? Barry, there was a comment by Bubakar, and I know he's involved in with a group who they want to sue the Ford government because they feel that the Ford government has encouraged people negotiate with your landlord. If you don't have the money, don't pay. And so I don't know if you see his question there in the comments. But he's saying, how do we encourage people to come back into if landlords have exited?
Don't look at me. I walked away. I'll never be a landlord again. Don't look at me. I'm the worst. I don't want anything to do with being a landlord. So I'm suing the government. Oh yeah, you'll do well with that one.
That's what Bob said last week too.
Yeah.
Have people come back. It's all about price.
Sorry.
By the way, I saw David ask the question. David Stoll
David Stoll, yes, go ahead.
So yeah, no, I saw David had a question. David, just so you know, I grew up in Guelph, so I know Cedar. I know the street.
Terry, what were you saying there, my friend?
Oh, to bring people back, it's all about price and the experiences that they've had. If they've had horrifying experiences and the dollars and cents don't justify the time and expense they put into it, they're going to stay out. The pricing comes down, or the valuations somehow go up, or the rent controls come off or are amended.
Rent control will never come off.
Never.
Yeah.
No, never. No.
Not a friendly province to be a landlord. So
well, you think about it.
You go into it with your eyes open.
Rent control is it confiscates private property. It's taking over private property.
But just think of what you were saying.
Landlords don't own their properties. The government does. Landlords are in a way, they've got like a license to do something, but they don't have control. They don't even have the full bundle of rights or anything. It's bullshit.
What's going to be interesting, though, is in the coming decades, where you're talking about Blackstone and BlackRock and Black Gold and whatever taking hundreds of properties and thousands of properties, which is definitely happening.
Oh, it's happening.
And we're talking about single-family residential properties that they're buying up as well. You're going to have, from a historically high home ownership to a lowering down of that percentage, you're going to have massive numbers of single-family homes that are now in the rental pool.
Yeah.
So that landlord-tenant law will be now covering those occupants as well. That's going to be an interesting thing. And then, like we had in the States, where you had so many tenants that became owners under the subprime mortgage fiasco, all these tenants living in these houses, how are they going to treat the houses? The houses are going to be dealt with like shit. They're going to go into the shitter, and you're going to have pockets of homes that are in bad shape.
With Terry saying, by the way, to wrap this up, there's going to be what we know today. There's going to be turmoil coming in the next decade. I won't see it. And it's also going to be the real estate industry, the brokerage industry is going to be highly impacted negatively. The public isn't going to keep paying 5% for whatever. And there's going to be huge changes, there's disruptors coming. The last time we had disruptors, the disruptors in real estate were always external. For the very first time, we have disruptors now that are internal. And we've got a whole slew of real estate agents out there that are doing what's good for the agent and not good for the industry. So we're going to see a lot of changes. But here's the last thing. The oldest baby boomer right now is about 75, maybe 76. They're the largest owners of single family dwellings. In the next 10 years to 20, all those properties eventually will hit the market. So you're going to see a huge, the reason that there's a huge demand, there's just no supply. What's going to happen when the seniors all start dumping their houses at the same time? And remember, in certain communities out there, in smaller towns and that, there's a lot of more gray hair than younger heads of hair. And you're going to see certain communities like Welland, for instance, which is an older demographic, or Peterborough. You're going to see a lot of houses come on the market at one time in the year 2032, 2035. You know, those of you that are younger, you'll be here to see this all happening.
Thanks very much, Barry. Appreciate you being here, and appreciate all of you for joining today. Just a reminder, in the fall, Barry's courses are going to be relaunched. He's got a whole roster of courses: how not to get sued, find your niche, making the phone ring, Realtor's Guide to the Senior Markets. Barry, what is appraisal for superior sales and listings?
It basically teaches the agent two things. It's one, it teaches them how to do a proper presentation, and two, how to price properly. Because how are you going to tell a seller that you should take this offer when you have no proof of what they should be taking? You have to remember at all times, it's a course on one thing and one thing only. At all times, the market speaks. We have to interpret what the market is saying.
Okay.
Market.
Selling the haunted house, a realtor's guide.
That's basically a disclosure course. Yes, it's all about, if anybody's interested in haunted houses and real estate, the greatest case in North America is the case in Nyack, New York, where the Supreme Court of the state of New York, which is no slouch, basically ruled that haunted houses are real. We have not had any case like that in Canada, not one. Bob Barron and I and another lawyer went back over 100 years and never found a case that ever came to court on haunted houses, murder, suicide that ever went anywhere.
Very interesting. Okay, and how to appraise the luxury property to list and sell?
That's a different game. That teaches about bracketing and how not to use standard appraisal practice that was developed in the 1920s and 30s, because it's not relevant 100 years later. It's archaic. Appraisal education is archaic. It's a different way. And you can go on YouTube and see my YouTube video at Barry Lebow TV on heretic real estate valuation.
And the last one I have is my kick-ass listing presentation.
I won't give that in Toronto. That one I only have to give, it's 100 kilometers from Toronto. So I was smart. I'm giving it in Kingston. And I figured, what's the big deal? And I walk in, there's 8 agents from Toronto. And I forgot, if I can drive to Kingston, they can drive to Kingston. So I had 8 Toronto agents there seeing my listing presentation. I'm fooling them though, because I'm ripping apart my presentation again and redoing it. So I teach them how to do a proper listing presentation.
All right. Well, I'm sure it'll be great. We saw something like that from you a few months ago, and it was, everybody was riveted. So it was great. I think Ernest Furtado is on Portuguese time. He just came in.
Oh, Ernest is Ernest, one of my favorite guys.
Yeah,
and I'll tell you this, David, I've been many places in this world, and I could move immediately to Portugal. Lousy language for me, but I love the country, love the food, love the people. I love Portugal.
I think Ernest has opened up EXP over there, so he's been
guys.
traveling. Hey, there he is. Hey, Ernest.
Are you robbing a 7-Eleven, or are you just being COVID cautious? Oh, he's off mute. He muted himself.
Screen knows.
All right.
Love
Okay,
Portugal. Love Portugal.
So thanks again.
Sorry about that.
Hey, Ernest.
Ernest, a pleasure to see you, brother.
Ernest, what's the latest? EXP is, you've opened it up in Portugal. Where else?
Yes, sir.
Where else? Anywhere else?
14 other countries.
14 other countries. Amazing. Yeah. Fantastic. All right. We hope to hear more about that soon.
All the best.
Okay. All right. Great to see you. Great to see you. Barry, thanks again. And thanks, Carrie, and everybody who has joined and asked lots of great questions. Appreciate your participation. Have a great week, and we'll see everybody soon.
One last thing.
Yeah.
You're going to try to get a hold of me on Facebook. I got a 30-day suspension on Facebook. I'm not back for 17 more days. Again, I got bounced off Facebook. So you have to get me privately.
We heard you today. Unedited, uncut, right here on Zoom.
Well, I was cut. That came at birth, but that's okay.
Happy Canada Day, everyone.
Happy Canada Day, Chris. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Take care. Good to see you all. Bye-bye.